What is trust? Today we're going to talk about the speed of trust, and we're going to expand on our last video and start going through some core concepts of trust. But before we do, my name is Chris Baker. I'm the founder of Stand Up Leaders. It is great to be back with you today after a short hiatus for sickness and injury, but I am glad to be back with you. So listen, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Subscribe to this channel, click the bell icon so that you get notified as new videos come up. And again, if you've got comments, put them in the comments section. I definitely will reply to all of them, and share the video with other people that you think would be interested in developing themselves and becoming the best leader they can be. So let's get this straight. Trust issues affect everyone. Now, you may have heard these phrases before. You may have even said some of these phrases before. You know, I can't stand the politics at work. It seems like everyone is just out for themselves and will do anything to get ahead. Maybe you've said or heard, I've been burned in the past and now I find it hard to trust anyone. There's so much red tape and bureaucracy that it's impossible to get anything approved around here. I feel like my contributions are not recognized or appreciated. I feel like I can't say what I truly think at work for fear of getting fired or retribution. My boss is a micromanager and treats us like we can't be trusted. Do those things sound familiar? Have you heard other people say them? Have you said them? If we're honest, I think all of us at some point have said something very similar to those things. Now, you may feel like you can't do anything about these situations. And through this next series of videos, my aim is to prove to you that you can make a difference. You see, learning how to establish, grow, extend, and restore trust can and will significantly alter the trajectory of your life. So let me start by asking a question. What is trust? Again, you can go into the comment section below and put your thoughts on it. And again, as I say, I'll always respond to those comments. But let me put it in simple terms for you in my perception, and Stephen Covey is along the same lines. First of all, trust is confidence. It's confidence in other people, in organizations, in procedures, basically in everything. Now, there are two main areas where trust is gained or lost. The first one is integrity, and the second one is ability. In the speed of trust, it talks about how when trust is low, the speed of getting things done goes down. In other words, it slows down, and the cost, which could be time and or financial, will go up. Now, the opposite is true when trust is high. When speed goes up, things get done a lot quicker and the costs go down. You can look at this another way. You're either paying a trust tax or you're receiving a trust dividend. So what are those exactly? Well, a trust tax is often hidden, so you may not even be aware that you're paying it. What we need to do is raise our awareness of this tax, and then we can take actions so that we can stop paying it. Now, I want you to take a moment and think about a conversation that you've had with maybe your boss, a coworker, a peer, your spouse, a teenager, anybody that you've had in the recent past, and that during this conversation, you could tell that they were automatically discounting something or everything that you said. You know, you may have even have been that person taxing someone else in this way because you don't trust them. That's that trust tax. When someone doesn't trust you, they're not listening to what you're saying, and therefore you're paying that tax because things are not getting done. Now, it could be, and quite often this tax can be inherited, right, based on the actions of somebody else. You know, maybe your predecessor at work. You may have inherited a team where the previous leader had a low level of trust with the team. It could be that your spouse or your current partner had a bad experience with their previous partner or spouse, and therefore that's impacting you in your current relationship. You know, so this can be anything at work, a bad experience from previous relationship, anything. Now, the opposite of a trust tax is a trust dividend, and this is earned when there is a high level of trust. And what happens is this dividend acts as a multiplier, elevating every aspect of your life, both personal and professional. So, what would it feel like to be living a life where trust dividends were the norm? I'll pause for a moment just for you to think about and ask that question again. What would it feel like to be living a life where trust dividends were the norm? In other words, trust taxes were a thing of the past. Well, let's take a look at some trust myths and compare them with the reality. The myth or common myth could be that trust is built solely on integrity. Well, the reality is trust is a component of both character, which includes integrity, and competence. And we're going to cover those in more detail in a short while. Another myth is you either have trust or you don't. Well, the truth is that the reality is that trust can both be created and destroyed, and it's got various levels. It's not you've either got it or you haven't. Another myth would be that once lost, trust cannot be restored. Well, again, the reality is it may be difficult if you lose trust, but trust can be restored. It may take time, but it can be restored. Another common myth is that you can't teach trust. Well, the reality is that trust can be effectively taught and learned, and as a result can become a strategic advantage. Another myth, trusting people is too risky. You may have felt that or heard that before. But again, the reality is that not trusting people carries a greater risk than trusting people. Another myth is that trust can only be built face to face. Well, the reality is, and especially in today's environment, that trust can be built in virtual teams and in digital environments. And it has to be because the world is a smaller place now and people are communicating a lot more virtually and digitally. And the final myth I'm going to share to you today, that trust is established one person at a time. Well, again, the reality is that when you establish trust with one person, it will start to establish trust with many. And that will help you to multiply and compound that effect of trust. Now, Booker T. Washington said, few things can help an individual more than to place responsibility on him and to let him know that you trust him. So I want you to think about that for a moment. How has this statement impacted your life so far? You know, can you think of a time when someone has given you responsibility for something, and how did that make you feel? You know, maybe you've given responsibility to someone else. What was the result? Was it a positive? Was it a negative? Again, look at that and start to evaluate it. The reality is that we all like to feel valued, heard, and trusted. It starts with you. Right? How do you pay forward that trust to other people? How do you help them feel valued, heard, and trusted? Here's a few more questions for you to answer. And again, if in the details section below this video, I'm going to put all these questions so you can spend some time on them. The first question is, who do you trust? It could be someone in your personal life, at work, or whatever, but who do you trust? The second part of that is, why do you trust this person? What is it that inspires confidence in this relationship? And really dig deep and think about that. Now let's turn this around and ask the opposite. Who trusts you? What is it in you that inspires the trust of others? Is this different in your work life to your home life? Difficult questions, but ones that I would definitely encourage you to spend some time thinking about. Now, I mentioned earlier that there are two foundations of trust. That's character and competence. Most of us will be familiar with the concept of character. That's being a good or sincere person, having ethics and integrity. Well, character includes your integrity, your motive, and your intent with people. And then we have competence, which includes your capabilities, your skills, your previous results, and your track record. Here's the thing. Both of these are vital and essential in building a high level of trust. You see, you may feel that a person has good character, in other words, that they're sincere and honest, but if they don't have a track record of getting results, your level of trust in them will automatically be lower. Now, the opposite is also true. Someone could have a great track record of getting results, using their skills and talents to generate results. But if you don't feel that they're honest and maybe they cut some corners or break some rules to get these results, you probably won't trust them as highly. So let's go through the 4 cores of credibility. And these are taken from Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust. Core number 1 is integrity. I like to think of integrity as doing the right thing even when no one is watching. It's walking your talk and having the courage to act in accordance with your values and your beliefs and not compromising those. Core number 2 is intent. This refers to our motives, our agendas, and our resulting behavior. Trust grows when our motives are straightforward and based on mutual benefit. Now, both integrity and intent are matters of character. Core number 3, capabilities. This is our ability to inspire confidence and is based on our skills, our talents, our attitudes, and our knowledge. In other words, what have we been trained to do? Core number 4 is results. This is our track record, our ability to get the right things done in the right time, doing what we're expected to do within timelines that we're given. Now, capabilities and results, so core 3 and 4, these are matters of competence. All 4 cores need to be evident to build a high level of trust. Just to emphasize, someone may have a high level of integrity, a good intent, and a great track record of getting results. But if they're given a task in which they have a low level of capability, the level of trust that you put in them to be able to do that successfully will be low. So let's put this into context by using an example. So I want to improve my golf skills and lower my handicap. Now, one of my co-workers is someone who demonstrates a high level of integrity, has the best of intent, and is a great project manager who gets things done. Now, if I ask them to teach me how to improve my golf game, even though they've never played golf before, what would my level of trust be in them helping me to lower my handicap? Now, while they would do their best, their lack of understanding and talent in the game of golf would not inspire trust. It doesn't mean that I don't trust them. It merely means that I wouldn't trust them to be successful in this task. And that's what you want to look at. It's not a question of is that person trustworthy or are they not? Do you trust them to complete that task? Are they checking all of the 4 cores and then you're building that trust? The same with you. If somebody asks you to do it, are you checking all of those 4 core boxes? Another way to look at these 4 cores is to think of it as a tree. Now, integrity is below the surface. It's literally the roots from which everything else grows. Intent is more visible. So this would be the trunk, the tree trunk. Capabilities would be the branches. They're the things that enable us to produce. And then finally, the results are the fruits. That's the visible, tangible, and measurable outcomes that are easily evaluated by other people. Now, as we develop this series, we're going to dive deeper into these 4 cores, and I'm also going to introduce you the 13 behaviors that will help you to increase the speed of trust. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I look forward to coming and sharing more with you in the coming weeks and months. Again, make sure you subscribe, put your comments in there, give me a like on this video. Let's get as many as we can and share it with other people that you think would benefit from these messages. My name is Chris Baker. I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.